Commander Elena Patul stood at the panoramic windows of Poseidon I, Earth's deepest and most secret military installation, watching schools of bioluminescent fish dart through the darkness of the Mariana Trench. The base's external lights were dimmed, making the natural light show even more spectacular. But she wasn't here for the view. Multiple contact signatures dropping out of FTL. Commander, Lieutenant James Okoro reported from his station. The Myriad fleet is right on schedule. Elena's jaw tightened as she watched the tactical hologram materialize in the center of the command center. Dozens of crystalline ships, each the size of a small city, appeared in high orbit. The aliens called themselves the Myriad, a species that evolved from aquatic creatures similar to Earth's cephalopods. They'd arrived 3 months ago with a simple demand. Earth's oceans belong to them by right of their aquatic heritage. Status of the Leviathan grid? Elena asked, her dark eyes fixed on the alien vessels as they began their descent into the atmosphere. All nodes operational and cloaked, Captain Maya Rivera responded, her fingers dancing across her holographic interface. The entire network is ready for activation on your command. The Leviathan grid had been humanity's best-kept secret for the past 30 years. A worldwide network of underwater defense platforms, cities, and military bases that could turn Earth's oceans into an impenetrable fortress. The Myriad had no idea it existed. They thought they were dealing with a primitive species that barely understood the potential of their own oceans. They're broadcasting, Okoro announced. Same message as before. Surrender your waters or face immediate resource extraction. Elena allowed herself a small smile. Send them our response. The message was simple. No. The Myriad ships paused in their descent, clearly confused by the direct refusal. They had expected humanity to capitulate or at least attempt further negotiations. Their hesitation was all the time Elena needed. Execute Operation Hydra, she commanded. All stations, commence Phase 1. Across Earth's oceans, thousands of hidden sensors and weapons platforms powered up. The Leviathan grid hummed to life, creating an invisible web of energy that could detect and track every molecule of water moving above it. The Myriad were about to learn why humans had spent the last 3 decades preparing for this exact scenario. First wave of Hydra drones launching now, Rivera reported. The underwater launch bays of Poseidon I opened silently, releasing swarms of autonomous vehicles designed to operate in the extreme pressures of the deep ocean. Each drone was equipped with advanced electromagnetic pulse generators specifically calibrated to disrupt the Myriad's crystalline technology. The alien ships had no warning. The first indication that something was wrong came when their anti-gravity systems began to fail. The magnificent crystalline vessels, designed for space and air, proved remarkably unsuited for unexpected ocean landings. Multiple Myriad vessels experiencing critical systems failure, Okoro reported, unable to keep the satisfaction from his voice. Their formation is breaking apart. Elena watched as the tactical display showed the careful choreography of humanity's defense plan unfolding. The Hydra drones herded disabled Myriad ships into predetermined zones, while submarines surfaced to escort the vessels still airborne. The aliens had assumed humanity's underwater presence would be limited to primitive military submarines. They were about to discover how wrong they were. "Ma'am," Rivera called out, "we're detecting energy buildup in the remaining Myriad ships. They appear to be preparing their harvest beams." "Perfect," Elena replied. "Signal the Atlantis network. Let's show them what we've really been doing down here." Across the world's oceans, massive underwater cities began powering up their shield generators. The Myriad's harvest beams, designed to collect and store entire oceans, struck an invisible barrier of energy that they hadn't detected in their scans. The aliens had dismissed the depths as too primitive to monitor effectively. That mistake was about to cost them dearly. Incoming transmission from the Myriad flagship, Okoro announced. They're requesting to open diplomatic channels. Elena straightened her uniform, smoothing out invisible wrinkles. "Tell them we'd be delighted to discuss terms. In fact, We had a lovely underwater conference facility where we can all sit down and talk about proper interspecies ocean sharing protocols. The command center crew maintained their professionalism, but a few smiles broke through. The situation was almost too perfect. The mighty myriad, who had arrived ready to claim Earth's oceans through superior force, were about to get a guided tour of exactly why that had been a terrible idea. Should we show them the whale communication network too? Rivera suggested, her eyes twinkling with amusement. Let's save something for the second date, Elena replied with a wink. Don't want to show all our cards at once. As the myriad fleet hung suspended between sea and sky, their harvest ships dead in the water and their flagship surrounded by more advanced underwater technology than they'd thought possible from primitive land mammals, Elena couldn't help but feel proud. Humanity had prepared for countless invasion scenarios, but aquatic aliens claiming their oceans hadn't even made the top 10. Yet here they were, handling it like they'd rehearsed it 1,000 times. Because in many ways, they had. The oceans had challenged humanity since the beginning of their existence. They had looked at the most hostile environment on their planet and said, "Challenge accepted." The myriad were about to learn that claiming someone's oceans without checking what lived in the depths first was a serious tactical error. In the darkness of the Mariana Trench, Poseidon I continued its silent operation, proof that humanity had long since outgrown its terrestrial cradle. The myriad had arrived expecting to find a primitive species clinging to the land while they claimed the seas. Instead, they'd found a civilization that had not only mastered living on land, but had also conquered the very environment that had inspired their own evolution. And if any other alien species got ideas about claiming Earth's oceans, well, humanity had plenty more surprises hidden in the depths. After all, they didn't call it the deep state for nothing. The myriad delegation's environmental suits gleamed under the bioluminescent lights of New Singapore, one of Earth's largest underwater metropolises. Commander Elena Patel watched with carefully concealed amusement as Ambassador Keith Thrax pressed his tentacled appendages against the transparent aluminum walls, his compound eyes widening at the sight of human children swimming in the aquatic parks beyond. "Your species lies here." The translator rendered Kithrax's clicks and whistles into stunned English. "Permanently. This is just one of our smaller cities," Elena replied, gesturing to the sprawling underwater architecture that seamlessly blended with the marine environment. Engineered coral formations housed thousands of residents, while schools of specially bred fish maintained the city's complex ecosystem. "We have similar installations across all major oceans." Lieutenant Okoro, walking beside them, pulled up a holographic display showing the city's infrastructure. New Singapore houses approximately 2 million citizens, with another million in the surrounding aquaculture zones. The city produces its own food, generates energy from thermal vents, and serves as a major hub for our deep-sea mining operations. The myriad delegation exchanged troubled looks. Their initial scans of Earth's oceans had shown nothing of this scale. They had detected some human activity underwater, of course, but had dismissed it as primitive exploration efforts. The reality was proving far more complex. "How long?" Kithrax asked, his tentacles writhing in what Elena had learned was a sign of agitation. "How long have your people been building these underwater habitats?" Elena led them through a transit tube, where a high-speed magnetic train waited to take them to the city's central command center. "We began serious underwater colonization efforts about 50 years ago, shortly after we detected your species' first probe entering our solar system." The admission caused Kithrax to stop mid-stride. "You knew we were coming." "We knew someone was coming," Elena corrected, gesturing for them to enter the train. "Your probe's aquatic-based technology was distinctive enough to warrant preparation. Humanity has learned through hard experience that it's better to be over-prepared than caught off guard." The train accelerated smoothly, offering spectacular views of the underwater city and the deep ocean beyond. Schools of bioluminescent fish created living light shows, their patterns synchronized with the city's mood lighting system. Massive whale sharks, fitted with advanced monitoring equipment, patrolled the perimeter alongside automated defense drones. But your species evolved on land. Another myriad delegate, Science Director Wheeler, interjected. The environmental adaptations required for permanent underwater habitation were considerable, Elena finished. But humans have a particular talent for adapting environments to suit our needs while adapting ourselves to work within environmental constraints. The oceans weren't just a challenge. They were an opportunity. They arrived at the command center, a massive structure shaped like a nautilus shell. Inside, holographic displays showed real-time data from across Earth's oceans, weather patterns, marine life migrations, submarine traffic, and countless other data points created a comprehensive picture of planetary marine operations. "This is impossible," Wheeler muttered, their tentacles curling in disbelief. "Our preliminary studies of your species indicated you were primarily focused on space exploration. These underwater achievements were deliberately kept quiet," Elena confirmed. "While everyone watched our space programs, we were building something far more ambitious down here. The oceans cover over 70% of our planet's surface. We couldn't afford to ignore that kind of potential." Thrax moved closer to one of the displays, studying the network of underwater transit tubes that connected major cities. "Your technology. Some of these innovations, they're beyond what we currently possess for underwater operations." "Necessity breeds innovation, Ambassador," Elena replied. "When you live in an environment that can kill you in seconds, you either develop extremely reliable technology or you don't develop at all." A sudden alert drew their attention to the central display. A pod of enhanced dolphins was approaching, their neural interfaces linking directly with the city's communication network. The myriad watched in amazement as the dolphins began transmitting complex data streams, reporting on deep ocean conditions and suspicious activities near the continental shelf. "You've modified your planet's marine life?" Wheeler asked, their scientific curiosity overtaking their diplomatic reserve. "Partnered would be a more accurate term," Elena corrected. "Earth's marine species have inhabited these waters far longer than we have. We learned early on that cooperation yields better results than domination." The implications of everything they were seeing seemed to finally hit Thrax. The myriad had arrived expecting to claim Earth's oceans from a species they viewed as surface-dwelling primitives. Instead, they had stumbled into a civilization that had not only mastered underwater living, but had advanced it beyond anything the myriad had achieved in their own aquatic evolution. "Commander Patel," Thrax said slowly, their translator struggling to convey the complex emotions in their voice, "I believe my species may have made several significant miscalculations regarding humanity." Elena smiled diplomatically. "That's why we believe in dialogue before action, Ambassador. Would you like to see our deep-sea agricultural facilities next? We've made some fascinating breakthroughs in pressure-resistant crop cultivation." As they continued the tour, emergency alerts flashed silently across Elena's neural interface. The myriad weren't the only ones who had noticed Earth's oceans. 3 more alien fleets had just been detected entering the solar system, each with their own agenda for Earth's waters. The surface show was impressive, but humanity's real underwater capabilities remained hidden, waiting to be revealed if these new visitors proved as presumptuous as the myriad. In the depths of New Singapore's security center, automated systems began activating protocols that had never been tested outside of simulations. Humanity had built their underwater civilization in secret, preparing for the day when the galaxy discovered what lay beneath Earth's waves. That day had arrived sooner than expected, but they were ready. The oceans had taught humanity patience, adaptability, and the value of hidden strength. The myriad were just the first to learn these lessons. They wouldn't be the last. The Emergency Council chamber of New Singapore hummed with tension as holographic displays showed 3 distinct alien fleets approaching Earth. Commander Elena Patel stood before the gathered military and civilian leaders, with the myriad ambassador Thrax floating nervously in his environment suit nearby. The nearest fleet belongs to the Vorkath Collective, Elena announced, highlighting a group of massive organic-looking vessels. They specialize in harvesting oceanic biomatter. The second fleet appears to be hegemony mining vessels, likely after our deuterium reserves. The third, she paused, studying the strange geometric patterns of the final group. We're still analyzing their configuration. They're axiom harvesters, Cathrax interjected, his tentacles writhing with obvious distress. They don't negotiate. They simply take. Admiral Zhang Wei, commander of Earth's Pacific Defense Grid, leaned forward in his chair. Then they're about to learn some very expensive lessons about taking things that don't belong to them. Commander Patel, initiate Protocol Leviathan. Elena's neural interface connected directly with the command network, activating systems that had lain dormant for decades. Across Earth's oceans, massive structures began to rise from carefully camouflaged positions on the seafloor. The myriad delegation watched in astonishment as their sensors detected hundreds of previously invisible installations powering up. What you've seen of our capabilities so far, Elena explained to Cathrax, represents about 15% of our actual underwater infrastructure. The rest has been waiting for a moment like this. Deep beneath the Mariana Trench, Poseidon I's true form emerged as layers of metamaterial cloaking deactivated. The facility wasn't just a command center. It was the heart of a weapons platform that extended throughout the entire trench system. Similar installations activated across every major oceanic trench on Earth. Multiple quantum signatures detected, Lieutenant Okoro reported. The Vorkath fleet is attempting to establish harvesting corridors. Deploy the Charid disarrays, Admiral Zhang ordered. Let's show them why taking Earth's oceans is a bad investment. Massive vortex generators, hidden within engineered seamounts, spun to life. The technology, reverse-engineered from studying marine creatures like mantis shrimp, could manipulate water pressure and temperature to create devastating underwater shock waves. The first Vorkath ships that entered the atmosphere found their organic hulls subjected to pressures they were never designed to withstand. Hegemony vessels launching mining probes, Maya Rivera announced from her station. They're targeting the Atlantic deuterium fields. Elena nodded to Admiral Zhang, who gave the authorization code that activated humanity's most closely guarded underwater weapons system. Beneath the Atlantic Ocean, artificially engineered bioluminescent bacteria suddenly changed their light patterns. The effect rippled across thousands of square kilometers, creating a living defense grid that could disrupt any unauthorized extraction attempts. The hegemony probes, designed to handle conventional defenses, found their sensors overwhelmed by the bacterial-like show. Their targeting systems, unable to compensate for the ever-changing patterns, began to fail. Several probes imploded under the intense pressure of the deep ocean, their remains quickly collected by automated recovery drones. The Axiom fleet is holding position just outside lunar orbit, Okoro reported. They appear to be analyzing our defenses. Good, Elena replied. That means they're smarter than the others. Ambassador Cathrax, would you like to send them a message? Perhaps warn them about your own experience with Earth's oceans. The myriad ambassador moved closer to the tactical display, their compound eyes reflecting the holographic light. They wouldn't believe me. The Axiom trust only their own observations. Then let's give them something to observe, Elena smiled. Admiral, permission to activate the Kraken protocol. On the tactical display, the Axiom fleet's formation began to break apart as their ships struggled to maintain structural integrity. The Vorkath and Hegemony vessels were already retreating, their attempts at resource extraction thoroughly thwarted by Earth's defenses. Incoming transmission from the Axiom command ship, Rivera reported, surprise evident in her voice. They're requesting permission to send a diplomatic delegation. Elena exchanged looks with Admiral Zhang and Ambassador Cathrax. The myriad diplomats' tentacles were moving in what she had learned was their equivalent of shocked laughter. The Axiom never negotiate, Cathrax said. They've existed for 10,000 years, and they've never once backed down from a resource claim. First time for everything, Elena replied. Humanity does tend to have that effect on long-held assumptions. Shall we prepare the underwater conference room again? As the situation stabilized, Elena couldn't help but feel proud. Humanity had spent decades preparing for this moment, building not just defenses, but an entire civilization beneath the waves. They had taken their planet's most challenging environment and turned it into their greatest advantage. The galaxy was about to learn that Earth's oceans weren't just a resource to be claimed. They were humanity's home, their fortress, and their future. And they were very, very well defended. The Grand Diplomatic Chamber of Atlantis Prime, Earth's most sophisticated underwater city, hosted an unprecedented gathering. Representatives from 4 alien species sat across from humanity's delegation, their environment suits adapted to handle the pressure at 3,000 meters below sea level. Commander Elena Patel watched as bioluminescent creatures danced across the transparent dome above them, their patterns reflecting the tense atmosphere within. Let us be clear, the Axiom Supreme Executor's crystalline form shifted colors as it spoke. Your species has achieved something we believed impossible. You've weaponized an entire planetary ocean system while simultaneously creating a thriving civilization within it. Admiral Zhang smiled diplomatically. We prefer to think of it as adapting to our environment. Everything you've seen, the Kraken vessels, the bacterial defense grids, the pressure manipulation systems, they're all based on studying Earth's marine life. The Vorkath representative, a massive amorphous being floating in a specialized containment field, pulsed with curiosity. But the neural interfaces with cetacean species, the living ships, the underwater agriculture, these go beyond mere adaptation. Elena stepped forward, activating a holographic display in the center of the chamber. Perhaps a demonstration will help you understand our perspective. Lieutenant Okoro, please show our guests the Genesis Project. The hologram shifted to show massive underwater structures scattered across Earth's continental shelves. These weren't cities or military installations, but something far more ambitious. 30 years ago, Elena explained, we realized that protecting our oceans wasn't enough. We needed to understand them completely. The Genesis Project represents humanity's effort to map, sequence, and preserve every form of marine life on Earth, down to the microscopic level. The hegemony delegate, their crystalline exoskeleton glinting under the ambient light, leaned forward. For what purpose? Initially, survival. Elena gestured, and the hologram zoomed in on one of the Genesis facilities. Climate change nearly devastated our ocean ecosystems. We had to learn how to repair and rebuild them. In doing so, we discovered something extraordinary. The ocean itself is a form of technology. Every creature, every biological process, every adaptation developed over millions of years. They're all solutions to engineering problems we hadn't even conceived of yet. Cathrax, who had been quietly observing, suddenly understood. The Kraken vessels. They're not just weapons, are they? They're exploration ships, Elena confirmed, designed to survive the most extreme conditions imaginable. We've already sent several to explore Europa's subsurface ocean. The bacterial defense grid. It's actually a planetary-scale communication network that helps us monitor ocean health. Even our pressure manipulation technology was developed to help restore damaged coral reefs. The Axiom Supreme Executor's colors shifted to what their cultural database indicated was profound surprise. You've turned your entire ocean into a laboratory. And a garden, Admiral Zhang added. And a city, and yes, when necessary, a fortress. But primarily, it's our home. One we've learned to share with its original inhabitants. As if on cue, a massive shadow passed over the diplomatic chamber. The aliens looked up to see a blue whale, fitted with neural enhancement technology, gliding gracefully overhead. Its song, translated through the chamber's acoustic systems, carried complex data about deep ocean conditions and migration patterns. Which brings us to why we've gathered here, Elena continued. Earth's oceans aren't just a resource to be harvested. They're a living library of solutions to problems your species haven't even encountered yet. We're willing to share what we've learned, to collaborate on further research. But any attempt to claim or exploit our waters will be met with the full force of everything you've seen, and quite a few things you haven't. The alien delegates exchanged looks. The hegemony representative spoke first. You propose a research alliance. We propose a partnership, Admiral John corrected. One that recognizes Earth's oceans as a protected scientific reserve, with controlled access for joint research projects. We have much to learn from each other, but it must be done responsibly. The Axiom Supreme Executor's crystalline form pulsed with what seemed like amusement. You understand that accepting such terms would be unprecedented. The Axiom do not typically negotiate. Elena finished. Yes, Ambassador Thrax mentioned that. But then again, you've never encountered a species that turned their planet's oceans into both a shield and a bridge to the stars. As the diplomatic discussions continued, Elena received a private mural update from Poseidon 1. The Deep Space Monitoring Network had detected something massive approaching from beyond the Kuiper Belt. Something that made all 4 alien species' technology look primitive by comparison. She smiled inwardly. Humanity's ocean-based civilization wasn't just about defending Earth or advancing technology. It was about preparing for everything the galaxy might throw at them. And if this new arrival thought Earth's oceans would be easy pickings, they were in for quite a surprise. After all, humanity had only shown a fraction of what lurked in the depths. Some secrets were worth keeping, at least until they were needed. The oceans had taught them patience, and patience was proving to be humanity's most powerful weapon of all. The entity that emerged from deep space called itself the Tidehunter, and it made the previous alien fleets look like children's toys. Its massive form, larger than Earth's moon, defied conventional physics as it approached the solar system. Commander Elena Potal stood in Poseidon 1's command center, watching as the creature ship hybrid filled their long-range displays. Analysis complete. Lieutenant Okoro reported, his voice tight with tension. It's alive. The entire thing is a single organic entity with integrated technological components. Energy readings are off the charts. The alien delegates from the diplomatic conference had remained on Earth, their own vessel's sensors confirming what humanity's detection grid had discovered. The Tidehunter was a legend in their cultures, a nomadic entity that traveled from waterworld to waterworld, consuming entire oceans and leaving dead planets in its wake. We've received its message, Maya Rivera announced. Playing now. A voice that seemed to ripple like water itself filled the command center. Your oceans are sealed. Resistance is unnecessary. This world shall feed the tide. Admiral Zhang exchanged looks with Elena and the alien ambassadors. Well, he said calmly, I suppose it's time to show our final hand. Commander Patel, initiate Protocol Poseidon. Elena's neural interface connected with Earth's deepest command network. This is Commander Elena Patel. Authorization. Deep Blue Actual. Activate Gaia Network. Across Earth's oceans, something extraordinary began to happen. The water itself started to move with purpose, not through technology or external force, but as if it had awakened. The Genesis project had never been just about preserving and studying marine life. It had been about understanding the fundamental nature of Earth's oceans themselves. By all the depths, Cathrax whispered, his tentacles writhing in astonishment. You've made your entire ocean sentient. Not made. Elena corrected. Awakened. Earth's oceans have always been alive in their own way. We just learned how to communicate with them, to work in true symbiosis. The Gaia network isn't a weapon or a defense system. It's a partnership millions of years in the making. The Tidehunter paused its approach as it detected the change in Earth's oceans. For the first time in its ancient existence, it encountered a water world that could fight back, not just with technology, but with the very essence of its oceans. Massive waterspouts began to form across Earth's surface, but these weren't natural phenomena. They were expressions of the ocean's own consciousness, guided by the combined knowledge of humanity's science and billions of years of evolutionary wisdom. The bacterial communication network lit up like a neural web, carrying thoughts and intentions across the planet's waters. Incoming transmission from the Tidehunter, Okoro reported. They're requesting dialogue. Elena smiled. Accept transmission. Let's show them what real ocean mastery looks like. The conversation that followed would be remembered for centuries across the galaxy. The Tidehunter, ancient beyond comprehension, encountered something it had never seen before, a species that had not just tamed or exploited their world's oceans, but had formed a genuine symbiotic relationship with them. Your understanding exceeds our expectations, the Tidehunter communicated. This world is not PREI. It is kin. The alien ambassadors watched in amazement as humanity's true achievement became clear. The defense systems, the underwater cities, even the advanced biological engineering, they had all been stepping stones towards something far more profound. Humanity had turned their greatest environmental challenge into their greatest ally. We would welcome you to study with us, Elena offered to the Tidehunter. Earth's oceans have more to teach all of us, but they must be approached with respect, not hunger. The massive entity's response was to shift its form, reducing its size and approaching Earth, not as a predator, but as a student. The oceans themselves seemed to welcome it, the Gaia network extending tendrils of communication toward the ancient creature. Admiral Zhang turned to the assembled alien delegates. And this is why we were so insistent on protecting our waters. Not just because they're our home or our defense, but because they're our partners in understanding the universe itself. The Axiom Supreme Executor's crystalline form pulsed with what could only be described as reverence. Your species has achieved something beyond our comprehension. You haven't just mastered the oceans. You've evolved with them. That's humanity's real secret, Elena explained, watching as the Gaia network interfaced with the Tidehunter, sharing knowledge that had taken billions of years to accumulate. We never tried to conquer the oceans. We learned to listen to them, to grow with them. And in doing so, we discovered that Earth's waters weren't just a resource or an environment. They were our greatest teacher. Deep beneath the waves, in cities and research stations and military bases, humans continued their work, now joined by representatives from across the galaxy. Earth's oceans had become more than a fortress or a frontier. They had become a beacon, drawing together species in the pursuit of understanding rather than conquest. The Tidehunter's arrival marked the beginning of a new era. Other water worlds would learn to awaken their own oceans, guided by the knowledge humanity had gained. But Earth's waters would always be remembered as the first, the place where a species of land mammals had looked into the depths and, instead of seeing a resource to exploit, saw a partner to evolve alongside. As Elena watched the Tidehunter communicate with Earth's awakened oceans, she couldn't help but smile. Humanity had prepared for every possible threat from the stars, but in the end, their greatest achievement hadn't been their weapons or their technology. It had been learning to listen to the wisdom that had been there all along, waiting in the depths of their own world. The oceans had taught humanity patience, adaptability, and the power of true partnership. Now those lessons would spread across the galaxy, one world at a time, carried by the very forces they had once sought to control.